All right. In this episode, we're going to talk about, or two, you founders who want to exit your business. I'm actually going to go through an exit readiness checklist. So we're going to get right into it so I don't bore you with a bunch of intros, other than to say that I'm going to do this from my website, apexceo.co. And on there, I have a free exit readiness test. Okay. So apexceo.co, head over there. You can do the same test I'm going to do. And so my name is Luke Peters, and I exited in 2021, sold to private equity with a great exit, and sharing what I learned. Okay, so this is going to be a little different than, let's say, if you're talking to a banker and they've all got great advice, but this is from a founder's perspective. Okay, and so even if you're not looking to exit, you're a business owner. This is what you want to do to your business, anyways, regardless of exit. You want to prepare these steps. Okay, so I'm going to go through this exit readiness test. So if you're on the website, you can see there's a little window on the right. So we hit start and it's a quick test. So I'm just going to get right into it. And if you're watching this on the video, you can kind of see everything that we're doing here. Okay. So the first question is, how quickly can you produce trusted financials with clean ad backs? Now, everybody sort of underestimates, the financial aspect of things because they want to focus on sales and marketing. But when you get into a deal, this is where it can make it or break it. And we'll get into a lot of different areas, working capital, ad backs, planning for that. And most folks kind of think of ad backs last minute. I mean, you want to be doing those hopefully over the last 3 years, so you've got smooth financials. So the question here is, how quickly can you produce trusted financials? A lot of folks think they can do it, in a couple of months. But if you don't have anything, if you just have a bookkeeper, it is going to take you longer. So if you've got a great, VP finance or CFO, you might have them in a few weeks. And here we're just going to select 2 to 3 months. And I'm just going to show you sort of the results here. And then what percentage of revenue is recurring or under contract? So if you're, say, a consumer goods company and you're selling to Home Depot and Amazon and Walmart, you do have a contract, but I wouldn't consider that recurring, right? So that would be more in the 0 to 10% range, even though you have contracts with these companies. If you have a government contract and they're guaranteeing, what percentage of that is your business. If you have a service business and it's, 100% recurring, then that's a whole different story. So here we're going to say that you have some recurring, 10 to 30%. Why is that important? For obvious reasons. Investors, number one thing, private equity, they want to reduce risk, right? So they're looking to reduce risk. So if you have a lot of recurring business, that's going to definitely up your sales multiple. I can do another video. I'm assuming business owners know what multiples are in their categories and kind of what they're chasing, but I can get into those details as well. How founder dependent is your business? Now, obviously you're the leader. And a lot of founders think that the business can run without them, but the truth that's really, I'll maybe have to redo this question again. It's how founder dependent is your business. I do have a question later on, and this is tied to that, and that is, when you do your deal, how many people on your team can you bring in, and actually those individuals could present to a banker or to a buyer, actually to the buyer, right? So they could do the buyer meetings, because when you run a process, you might have 5-10 buyer meetings if you run a good process. And if it's just you versus you and your CFO and your, head of sales, et cetera, it really does power up your process. Okay. So here I'll say I have leaders in place, but I drive the company. Next question. Do you have a real operating plan tied to sales, marketing, and execution? And what we're looking for here is your team systematically being driven, right? Do you have KPIs? Does everybody have something they're chasing every single month? And then in addition to that, are you then following that up with meetings and one-on-ones and sort of what's the rhythm of that? So here, no written plan, just a high level idea. We have targets, management is involved. And then the last one is we plan annually with quarterly, monthly follow-ups on sales, marketing, and execution. So that's where we want to be. Hopefully that's where you are. What is your average EBITDA margin over the last 12 months? Now, I've had people filling out this form and nobody puts under 10%. And come on, there's a lot of companies under 10%. So let's not lie to ourselves. But we have the under 10, then you got the 10 to 15, 15 to 20, and over 20. So typically, if you're selling a product Try to get over 10%. You should be able to scale your product business a lot bigger than a service business. If you're running a service business, then hopefully you can get it over 20%. Your top line typically is smaller on a service business. And, if you're doing some HVAC, home service, commercial service, you should be pushing towards the 20, although I understand there's a lot of variables, and I understand a lot of these businesses are, 10 to 15%. But, let me pull back on this. Okay. If you're selling a widget, almost your gross margin or your contribution margin would be equivalent to the top line of a service business. Just think about what that means, right? Because and actually this was talked about in the Profit First book, by the way. If any of you guys ever read that book, it's really a cool book, but it's a great concept. It's like, if you're selling a product, most businesses are kind of equivalent to your gross margin. It's sort of basically saying that your top line is inflated on a product business. It's easier to run up a big top line. And of course, your margins are going to be smaller. I mean, if you're doing 15% on a product business with good scale, you're crushing it. And people will want to buy you. If you're over 10, you're still doing good. And if you're under 10, you got some work to do. And then for service, you want to be sort of a notch or two above the product. And then, of course, software, and other businesses kind of fall into different categories. Okay. So here we're going to put 10 to 15. And how many major risk areas apply to your business? Okay. So think of a buyer. A buyer is looking at risk. Okay. They want a repeatable business that they can invest, that there aren't going to be surprises, and that has a proven track record. That's what the buyer is looking for. They are looking to get rich, but they're more looking to not get poor. So here's the different risk factors. Okay, your brand strength. So I put weak brand, no competitive. You actually have a competitive moat. All right. Most companies don't have a clear competitive moat. Okay, we all think we do. Customer concentration. What does that look like? Like all of your sales, Amazon. Poor margins under 10%. We just talked about that. No recurring revenue. Weak financial systems. Most people say they don't. I mean, I guarantee you 60, 70% of companies don't have strong financial systems. And that's not a knock on anybody. It's just, it is what it is. So, no team depth, right? How do you measure depth? Would you bring your leaders into a buyer meeting to sell your business? Would you have them present with you? If you say yes, you've got some great leaders. Okay. So how many of these things apply to your business? We're going to say 3 to 4 apply. And again, this is all working towards a final score, and you can see all this at apexceo.co. Okay, so do you have strong growth momentum that's going to carry you through the deal? Now, why is this important? When we sold in 2021, we were so fortunate. We were crushing it. I think we were growing like 30% or something when we sold. And when you're crushing it, and the buyers are doing their due diligence, and the due diligence is still a nightmare either way, but there's a lot less questions when, your revenue goes from, 55 to 80 million or something like that. So can you, or do you have momentum? Now, a lot of times folks are looking to sell into the future. So you got to be more strategic. How can you make sure you have momentum in the future? And I would say, can you launch new products or services now to generate that momentum 6 months to a year to 18 months from now? So you have to be thinking, when you're in that process, you want to have momentum. Okay. And these are, most bankers are not going to tell you this, because the bankers are the ones that will take you to market, right? So this is more just founder to founder. This is how I'm thinking about it. How do you create that momentum before you even enter a deal? And it's got to be like 6 months before you enter, right? Because you got to have your trailing financials. And then when you enter the deal, you still want to be moving that right direction. Otherwise, you're going to have issues, and you're going to have to give concessions. So here we're going to say, 20% growth. We'll just put in. What is your best alternative to selling right now? Okay, I guess you call that your BATNA, right? So what's your best alternative? The options here is, I need to sell soon and I don't have a fallback plan. Okay, that's potentially there was poor planning, or there's a health issue or something, and you just got to sell. I could delay, but the pressure is building. I'm in a good place. I can say no, if I need to keep running it, and I have other buyers, investors, or plans. I'm in the driver's seat, right? So where are you? And most folks are, they could delay, but the pressure is building. Honestly, that's where a lot of folks who are thinking of selling I could delay, but the pressure selling. Now, what they're not doing is they're at this point, then, if they feel that, they need to be going back to my previous comments, strategic about how they can put themselves in a good position to sell. So there's too much analysis paralysis and not enough strategic decision making, right? So that you get yourself in the right spot. So here I'm going to say, I could delay, but pressure is building. All right. How strong is your leadership bench? Okay, it's just me, no real team. I have some help, but they can't run it without me. Solid team. One could make an investor level calls, or I could put multiple leaders on a buyer call tomorrow. So I want to measure by who you would put on a buyer call. I know a lot of you can say, well, I got a great team. I can go take a month-long vacation. That's wonderful. And not everybody is at that point. So you've put yourself in a great spot. But the next level is, could you put those leaders to close a deal for you? And that takes a whole different level of leader. So here we're going to put a solid team. One could make the call, because hopefully you have that one person, that CFO, maybe, or like a head of ops, or a COO, something like that. All right. So we'll put that. And now we're heading towards the end here. Okay, so what is your brand and customer loyalty mode? So again, what is your strategy? What is your competitive advantage? Now, uh, think about it. Most companies don't have such an incredible competitive advantage, an idea that nobody came up with. They don't have that. They might have a strong brand, and then they've got good distribution, and then they mix in a better brand promise and some other things, and you put all that together, and that's their moat. So, don't be don't let this one get you down if you don't clearly come up with a good moat. A lot of times people are going to say it's brand based. So the choices I put are, you're competing on price, no real edge. Now, no one will probably ever click that, okay, unless you've got extreme honesty. But a lot of PEs are going to call you out on that one. That's what they will be thinking. So others say some differentiation, but fragile and not communicated. My other option, brand based, loyal customers and strong reviews. So brand based means, you've got great reviews. You're an SEO savant, and you've got great content out there and people talking about you. I mean, you could be selling the same exact product, right? But we know how strong branding is. And then the next one is, it's a product and brand based moat. You might have some IP, patents, and clear authority in the space. Now, yeah, I'd only select that if you literally had IP that protects, the shape and design and utility of something, and you actually can't get clear copycats. And that's a really hard one, and that's going to move your multiple up, frankly. I mean, you want to get, either you've got brand based loyal customers, or you want to have this product and brand-based moat. And this is exactly where, I do CEO coaching, and this is where I can help clients, because we want to have differentiation in these areas. All right. Oh, I didn't select one. So I want to say brand-based. Okay. And then finally, put your email address in here. And so I'm Luke at Apex CEO. And then what's going to happen is, I'll get emailed a report. Okay. And so this takes me back to the homepage. So I hope that was valuable. Now the report, it's going to kind of go through your strengths and weaknesses and give you some things to work on. So, I hope that I'm creating some value here. I put some thought into how I wanted to make this from a entrepreneurial standpoint, and something that's not going to take you forever to fill out, and also something that you're actually going to get emailed a valuable report where you could say, oh, okay, you know what, maybe I need to think about my leadership and work on that area. Or, my customer concentration is too high. And I've known that, but now this sort of reinforces it. And I'm going to make a conscious effort to, build out some other, channels that I can diversify a bit more, and on and on. So that's the purpose here. Hopefully we get you an extra turn on your sale. If you want direct help, obviously I help CEOs directly on this stuff. So reach out, and I have a lot of experts. If you're going into a deal, if you want advice on a deal and how to prepare for a deal, I got, a whole bench of experts to help in that capacity. So that's it. Hopefully this is helpful, and take care, everybody. If you enjoyed this, please leave a positive review. Thank you.